All right, just so that you know, and I saw this about 4:30, 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning, and I saw it on Fox News of all stations, not the cable channel, but our local Dallas Fox station, that two of the suspects that they keep talking about that are in custody are not in custody. They've been released. And I'm going to play a video and I wish I had recorded the Fox interview with these two guys earlier this morning. But I'm going to play a video of two of the quote-unquote suspects that are in custody. They've been out of custody since 4 o'clock this morning.
In the hours after the shooting, Dallas police identified what they call the suspect. They tweeted out this photo, here it is, and the caption, "Please help find him. This is one of our suspects, please help find him." That's a guy named Mark Hughes in the photo. Mark turned himself in. He was released about a half hour later. In reality, he was a peaceful demonstrator. That picture retweeted tens of thousands of times. It was plastered all over Facebook. Mark Hughes joins me now along with his brother Corey, who's one of the organizers. Let me start with you. Walk me through how this happened. Give me a blow by blow.
A blow by blow is kind of difficult because I wasn't aware that I was even a suspect. Gunshots rang out. We ran. We wanted to go to our vehicle to leave, but our vehicle was at the spot where I guess a lot of the shooting was happening. It was hours later, after I had given up my gun, that I received a phone call that I was now a suspect.
All right, real quick. He was the brother of one of the organizers, and he was walking around exercising his Second Amendment right to carry his AR-15. Texas is an open carry state. But he was being helpful, and he even helped the police when the shooting first started. Anyway, let this run.
CNN, around multiple news outlets, I was a suspect, and I didn't understand how I became a suspect.
And who called you? Just a friend?
A friend called.
Said, Mark, I saw your face. I see your face plastered everywhere.
And the moment they told me my face was out there, the only thing I could think of was, of course, I was in the background when they were doing interviews. So, of course, I'm like, I made national news.
But I do want to put, there's that picture. Now, you're wearing a camo shirt, and what kind of weapon do you have strapped around you?
An AR-15.
You're walking through the streets of Dallas with an AR-15 at a protest.
At a protest.
Why?
Exercising my Second Amendment right.
So when you found out you were a suspect, were you surprised?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I hadn't done anything wrong. For me to go from a person that was actually assisting with the traffic, assisting, helping people get out of harm's way, to becoming a suspect was mind-blowing.
Have you received an apology yet?
I have not received an apology. DPD has yet to release my picture.
The picture's still up?
It's still on their Twitter page as of an hour ago. It's still on their Twitter page as me being a suspect. And that's mind-blowing to me.
I want to, Corey, again, as I understand, you were one of the organizers last night. We've heard from a number of people. I've talked to some eyewitnesses, some people who were involved in the protest. They'd say it was peaceful. They say at points the police officers were actually participating. But I have talked to one or two folks who said that toward the end, there were people yelling things at the police, yelling some obscenities at the police. Did you see that? Did you hear that?
Oh, I didn't necessarily see it or hear it, but I've been to enough protests to realize there's always going to be a few agitators. There's always going to be a few opportunists, extremists that show up and try to ride the coattail of the peaceful protests. And so, although I didn't see it, I've experienced it before, so it wouldn't surprise me. But all in all, I'd probably say it was probably one of the most peaceful protests that I've ever attended. The spirits were high. It was every ethnicity was here, and we were basically here to give voices to the voiceless. And things change in a matter of seconds.
When did did you realize? How did you realize that something awful was happening?
Well, because I was one of the speakers at the protest. We were in front of the line as people were protesting and marching, and as we were walking up towards the parking garage, I heard gunfire, and I instantly knew that something was wrong because I heard gunfire being returned. And so, just to be quite honest, when I first heard it, I thought it was fireworks. But then it kept going, and everybody started running. And the second thing that came to my mind was Orlando. Unfortunately, what just took place in Orlando, Florida. So I didn't know where the gunfire was coming from. And so after I got my bearings and realized what direction it was coming from, I ran the opposite direction, and I instructed the crowd to go back. After I instructed the crowd to go back, the next thing on my mind was for me to find my little brother.
You guys had been separated.
We've been separated.
So where were you at this point?
I was more in the middle of the crowd. I was more in the middle of the crowd. And at the time where I was located, I couldn't hear gunshots. I didn't hear gunshots or anything. I just noticed people running. And so I began to run back.
And from there you went where?
From there, I went after the crowd, because the crowd was going, some was going left, some was going right, some was going back.
Yeah.
I didn't know where the gunshot was coming from or what they were running from. My next thing was to find my brother. And so when I located my brother, that's when he came to me and advised me to take my gun off.
Why did you advise him to do that?
Well, again, because I've been to several protests, and unfortunately I've been a witness to several hashtags. Less than 48 hours ago, there was a young man that had a concealed gun license and was still murdered by the cops.
Did Big Brother Corey think perhaps you should have told him not to show up with the AR-15 strapped to his chest in the first place?
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Now, let me tell you why, because that's one of the reasons we were protesting in the first place. Why does the Constitution work for them and not for us? And so he's not a felon. He's not in harm's way, right? He's not harming anybody. So why not allow him to exercise his constitutional right?
You had the gun. At no point did you think about perhaps returning fire?
Not at all. Because, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what people were running from. When it first happened, I assumed there was a fight. And people were just dispersing. And as the crowd began to run back, people were yelling, they're shooting. When my brother first came to me, the first thing he told me to do was to unleash my firearm. And just like you say, I was like, why would I give up my gun if they're shooting?
Who did you give it to at that point?
At that point, I actually told him no. He went and got a police officer and asked the police officer to come get my gun.
So you go and you get the cop and you say, officer, my little brother's got an AR-15 he wants to give you.
Absolutely. I needed to make sure, because people were running towards us and cops were running in the opposite direction. There's a gun, and of course, information is coming to us that they're shooting at the cops. And so I knew at that point that it was important for me to say, hey, you give this gun to this cop so they know when they come full-fledged that it's not you. And so I found the cop, and I wasn't taking no for an answer. You need to give this gun to him, and Mr. Officer, you need to take this gun.
The officer originally said no. He originally told me to go put my gun away. And he was adamant about me giving the gun to the officer. And then the officer gave me his card and advised me that I could put my gun up on Monday.
Was it loaded?
I had a clip in it, but it was not loaded.
How did you turn yourself in later when you saw the picture? This was after you turned your gun over.
Yeah, I didn't see the picture. I received a phone call.
Okay.
It had to be within an hour and a half after the incident. An hour and a half after the incident. I received a phone call that my photo was on multiple outlets. And the first thing I did is I took my shirt off, because I was surrounded by police officers and I did not want to be killed. I didn't think that I was going to make it out alive if something like that would have, I kept my uniform on. And so I flagged down 2 officers to let them know that I was on social media and news outlets as being a suspect.
Mark Hughes.
Thank you very much.
Corey Hughes, thank you. Thank you both so much.
So because they got a picture of this man, and again, facial recognition and them being able to scan through probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of videos and photos where they were able to come up with this guy, and then to identify him as a person of interest, that's something else. But it was him and his brother that surrendered to the police and were released 30 minutes later. Those were two of the three suspects that they had that quote unquote were being uncooperative. See, and that's the bullshit that you got to be careful of when you deal with mainstream media, because they'll throw a lie out there and they'll run with it and run with it and run with it, even though the truth is probably the opposite of what's being said. And even when they find out that they're running with a bad story, they'll continue to do so. I know damn well Fox knew this morning that these two guys have been released, because Fox Dallas knew it, so why wouldn't Fox News know it? And if they knew it and continued to run with something that they knew wasn't true, that just tells you about Fox News. It also tells you about the rest of the mainstream media outlets that continue to run with that 3 people in custody and being uncooperative narratives.